Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. I want to talk to you about the livingness there is in being yourself. It has at least the merit of simplicity, for it surely must be easier to be oneself than to be something or somebody else. Yet that is what so many are constantly trying to do. The self that is their own is not good enough for them. So they are always trying to go one better than what God has made them, with endless strain and struggle as the consequence. Of course, they are right to put before them an ideal grander than anything they have yet attained. The only possible way of progress is by following an ideal that is always a stage ahead of us. But the mistake is in not seeing that its attainment is a matter of growth. And that growth must be the expansion of something that already exists in us. I am reading chapter 11, Yourself, from the book The Hidden Power by Thomas Troward. This is something that my mentor, Bob Proctor, would read over and over and over, and he would study it. He would study getting into the spirit of what the author was saying, what the author meant, and how you yourself, as a spiritual being, have the power within you to be, to do, to have whatever you desire. You are a spiritual being, and the growth you're becoming is the expansion of something that already exists in you. It takes getting quiet, getting still, becoming, expanding, permitting, allowing it to flow and to manifest into physical form. The big changes happen inside of you, not outside of ourselves, right here, right now. You're starting where you are, and you already have what it takes to attain greatness, to attain what you want, to become what you intend to become. Let's take a deep breath in and settle in and think about the gifts you have been given. You've been gifted with more talent and ability than you can ever use in this lifetime. Let's stop wasting it on petty complaining and whining and looking at everything that's wrong in the world. Get focused on what do we want to create? Not what's going on, not what we don't want, not what's already been done, but what do we want? We want to tap in to the infinite source of power and use that infinite source of power to get into the spirit of our goal. What do we want? What would we desire if we could be or do or have anything? What would it look like? How would we be feeling once we've attained the goal, once we're living the desired outcome? Once we have a life that we really love. So Thomas Troward says, I want to talk to you about the livingness there is in being yourself. It has at least the merit of simplicity, for it must surely be easier to be oneself than to be something or somebody else. Yet that is what so many are constantly trying to do. We don't need to aspire to be like another person. We just have to be ourselves. We have been gifted with talents, with abilities. Let's use them to create the life that we want. We don't have to try to go one better than what God has made, with endless strain and struggle as a consequence. Thomas Troward says, of course, they're right to put before them an ideal infinitely grander than anything they have yet attained. Well, the first step is to think about, what do you really want? How do you want to be living? How do you want to feel? But rather than draining and struggling and pushing and forcing, he says, the only possible way of progress is by following an ideal that is always a stage ahead of us. But the mistake is in not seeing that its attainment is a matter of growth. And that growth must be the expansion of something that already exists in us, and therefore implies our being what we are and where we are as its starting point. This growth is a continuous process, and we cannot do next month's growth without first doing this month's. But we are always wanting to jump into some ideal of the future, not seeing that we can reach it only by steadily going on from where we are now. These considerations should make us more confident and more comfortable. We are employing a force which is much greater than we believe ourselves to be, yet it is not separate from us and needing to be persuaded or compelled or inveigled into doing what we want. It is the substratum of our own being, which is continually passing up into manifestation on the visible plane and becoming that personal self to which we often limit our attention without considering whence it proceeds. But in truth, the outer self is the surface growth of that individuality which lies concealed far down in the deeps below, and which is none other than the spirit of life, which underlies all forms of manifestation. If you want to get into some very deep reading, you might want to read the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science. And Thomas Troward talks about science is the effect of the spiritual side. Science studies the effect. Religion studies the cause. The power within each one of us must be allowed to come to the surface, not looking around and discussing what's missing and feeling the lack, but growing into that which you must become in order to attain your goal. So while we want to sit in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, it's not enough to just sit still and imagine how wonderful life can be. You got to get excited that it is the coming attractions of your life. It is you who will bring into physical being that which you desire. But you must get into the vibrational, energetic frequency of how that feels. Not just sitting back and imagining and wishing and hoping and drawing pictures of what you want, but feeling connected to that. How does it feel? You will be, when you're getting into the state of being that which you want, that feeling starts to accelerate, that feeling of well-being, that feeling of, I am God's highest creation. What am I going to create? How do I want to be co-creating my life with the source? The power within you must be allowed to come to the surface and start acting in alignment with your goal, with what you desire, becoming that which you want. Thomas Troward says, endeavor to realize what this spirit must be in itself. That is to say, apart from any conditions that arise from the various relations which necessarily establish themselves between its various forms of individualization. You are not your mother, your father. You are not who someone told you you were when you were 3 years old or 10 years old or 16 years old. You are a unique individual expression of spirit, of divine energy. In its homogeneous self, what else can it be but pure life, essence of life, if you like so to call it? Then realize that as essence of life, it exists in the innermost of every one of its forms of manifestation in as perfect simplicity as any we can attribute to it in our abstract conceptions. It means you were created perfectly. You are an individual expression of universal power, of God, of source energy. It is in you, it is in me, it is in each one of us. Bring more of that to the surface. Use more of that powerful energy to create what you want. In this light, Thomas Troward says, in this light, we see it to be the eternally self-generating power which, to express itself, flows into form. This universal essence of life is a continually becoming into form. And since we are part of nature, we do not need to go further than ourselves to find the life-giving energy at work with all its powers. Hence, all we have to do is to allow it to rise to the surface. We do not have to make it rise any more than the engineer who sinks the bore pipe for an artesian well has to make the water rise in it. The water does that by its own energy, springing as a fountain 100 feet into the air. Just so we shall find a fountain of essence of life ready to spring up in ourselves, inexhaustible, and continually increasing in its flow, as one taught long ago to a woman at a wayside well. Accept that you have it. Create conscious awareness to start to utilize this power that's been given to you, that you are at your core, a spark of divine energy. Recognize it is within you. Don't fight the existing reality. Start growing here and now. Don't jump too far into the future. Simply grow to the next stage. You must become aware of your infinite potential. There are infinite possibilities, but potential and possibility remains potential and possibility until you take action and use that divine energy, use your conscious thinking awareness, use your human form to do something to create a different result, to create what you do want. This upspringing of life essence, Thomas Troward says, is not another's, it is our own. It does not require deep studies, hard labors, weary journeyings to attain it. It is not the monopoly of this teacher or that writer whose lectures we must attend or whose books we must read to get it. It is the innermost of ourselves. And a little common sense thought as to how anything becomes anything will soon convince us that the great inexhaustible life must be the very root and substance of us, permeating every fiber of our being. Surely to be this vast infinitude of living power must be enough to satisfy all our desires. And yet this wonderful idea is nothing else but what we already are in principio. It is all there in ourselves now, only awaiting our recognition for its manifestation. It is not the essence of life which has to grow, for that is eternally perfect in ourselves, in itself. But it is our recognition of it that has to grow. And this growth cannot be forced. It must come by a natural process, the first necessity of which is to abstain from all straining after being something which, at the present time, we cannot naturally be. The law of our evolution has put us in possession of certain powers and opportunities, and our further development depends on our doing just what these powers and opportunities make it possible for us to do here and now. What can you do today to get you closer to your goal? As we think, our thoughts move into form. We want to use the universal power to fill ourselves with light and love and faith and focus on possibilities. But force negates. We don't want to push. We don't want to force. We want to allow the divine, powerful energy to work through us. It's about power, not force. What can you do today? What can you do differently today that will start moving you in the direction of your goal rather than forcing yourself to work harder? What could you allow? What could you permit? If it was easy, what would today be? If you were at ease and you allowed the flow of divine energy to work through you, to do the heavy lifting. When you think about what do you really want, how would you be acting? What would you be doing if you were already living the life of your dreams. Thomas Troward says, if we do what we are able to do today, it will open the way for us to do something better tomorrow. And in this manner, the growing process will proceed healthily and happily in a rapidly increasing ratio. This is so much easier than striving to compel things to be what they are not. And it is also so much more fruitful in good results. It is not sitting still doing nothing, and there is plenty of room for the exercise of all our mental faculties, but these faculties are themselves the outcome of the essence of life and are not the creating power, but only that which gives direction to it. The creative process of each individual. Now, it is this moving power at the back of the various faculties that is the true innermost self. And if we realize the identity between the innermost and the outermost, we shall see that we therefore have at our present disposal all that is necessary for our unlimited development in the future. Thus, our livingness consists simply in being ourselves, only more so. And in recognizing this, we get rid of a great burden of unnecessary straining and striving. And the place of the old strum and drang will be taken not by inertia, but by a joyous activity which knows that it always has the requisite power to manifest itself into forms of good and beauty. What matter it whither this leads us? If we are following the line of the beautiful and good, then we shall produce the beautiful and good, and thus bring increasing joy into the world, whatever particular form it may assume. We limit ourselves when we try to fix accurately beforehand the particular form of good that we shall produce. We should aim not so much at having or making some particular thing as at expressing all that we are. The expressing will grow out of realizing the treasures that are ours already and contemplating the beauty, the affirmative side of all that we are now, apart from the negative conceptions and detractions which veil this positive good from us. When we do this, we shall be astonished to see what possibilities reside in ourselves as we are, and with our present surroundings, all unlovely as we may deem them, and commencing to work at once upon whatever we find affirmative in these, and withdrawing our thought from what we have hitherto seen of negative in them, the right road will open up before us, leading in wonderful ways to the development of powers that we never suspected, and the enjoyment of happiness that we never anticipated. Thomas Troward is telling us, when you look around at things as they are, don't focus on them being what you don't want, but give thanks for what you already have. Be grateful for your life, for what you've done, for what you've already created, for where you are now, for this is the starting point of getting better and better and better. He says we have never been out of our right path, only we have been walking in it backwards instead of forwards. Quit looking back and complaining about what isn't here. And now that we have begun to follow the path in the right direction, we find that it is none other than the way of peace, the path of joy, and the road to eternal life. These things we may attain by simply living naturally with ourselves. It is because we are trying to be or do something which is not natural to us that we experience weariness and labor, where we should find all our activities joyously concentrated on objects which lead to their own accomplishment by the force of the love that we have for them. But when we make the grand discovery of how to live naturally, we shall find it to be all and more than all that we have ever desired. And our daily life will become a perpetual joy to ourselves. And we shall radiate light and life wherever we go. When you visualize what you truly desire, you bring the images into the forefront of your mind. That stimulates your mind. You start to get creative ideas, and life keeps getting better and better. Go into this day with the attitude that you are going to let life be, that you know everything is working out for your greater good. Have a good attitude. Keep studying. Keep becoming a better and better version of yourself. You might take the time to write out what it is that you truly desire. And in thinking from the end, how happy, how grateful you are now that it is in you to bring to the surface, now that you know it's yours. It must be surely easier to be yourself than someone else. Thank God for the greatness within you, that you have been gifted with imagination and intuition, with everything to bring what you desire into your physical reality. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Create a wonderful day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7, and for my clients at 9 o'clock to talk about your infinite mind. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.